Good evening and welcome to the July Rutherford County Public Safety Meeting. And I'm glad we have quite a few from the Sheriff's Office tonight to visit us. And I'll entertain a motion for the minutes from the last minute.
Move to approve. Second.
A motion is second. All giving their approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any corrections or deletions? Okay, motion passes. The sheriff has asked if he could go first tonight, and since he's got daddy duty, as he calls it, and so it said sure that he can. He usually gets stuck last, so if he wants to go first, we can do it. But Miss Duke from Juvenile Detention says that we owe her.
I understand. I thank each and every one of you. Appreciate it.
We have, you want to start with the amendments first?
Okay, we can do that.
We have two amendments tonight, and these are normal for the first, usually, of the fiscal year. The first one is requesting remaining donated funds for the Shop with the Sheriff and the Vegetable Garden of Hope, the SCAN program, and donation for that was made for the general purpose dogs that was not able to be bought in the last fiscal year, and that was not included in the 15-16 budget. So that's the first amendment. The second amendment is to recognize revenue from the remaining GHSO grant to overtime. It's a reimbursable grant, and related benefits from the 14-15 year that was not included in the 15-16 year.
Okay.
So you're recognizing revenue without any expenses?
Right. Well, it's always that way. As far as this is the rest of the grant of what was left over from last year. So.
But you're not spending
We
at
will,
this time?
You're right.
Not this moment.
Not this moment.
It happens, and you're not the only department that happens to, that these grants, when they're not fully spent, they go into the general fund at the end of the previous budget year, and then roll out, and they get the money back into their funds the next year.
Right, in October, actually.
Okay.
This will.
It's at $29,672. Is it not supposed to be over and decrease?
It's not. It's if it's a revenue, it's supposed to go in the increase.
Okay.
Okay. So you've heard the request. We have a motion, or?
So moved.
We got a motion. We have a second.
I second.
And a second. Any further questions? Ms. Shelton, if you would call the roll.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Nipper,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Aye.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes. Now we'll look at the reports. I can't imagine. Hopefully there's nothing that's unusual, right? Anyone have any questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion on the sheriff's report.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Last time, any questions on his report? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Anything else I got? Accommodations. For your leisurely reading.
This is bedtime reading.
Yes.
Get into that.
Yes, but it shows, highlights all the good things that we're doing. Also, another thing to let you know, count this morning at the jail was 1,004. hopefully by the time we come to y'all next month, the shower project that we've been doing for almost a year will be complete. I was told by maintenance that last month the water bill was down by approximately about $15,000. So that's what I hope to bring to you and let you know going forward that the idea of putting in the push buttons and building actual doors for those those shower stalls and locking them up is saving a tremendous amount of water. Other than that, thank you, gentlemen. Y'all have a good night. Do you have
Thank
any-
you.
One
Sheriff.
quick question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I just want to make a public thank you to your men who came to the Rockville 4th of July celebration out there for their presence, for the people out there to see some of the equipment that's available through the Sheriff's Department, and for those guys giving their 4th of July to come out there and be there. Got a lot of good response from it. Appreciate Captain Spence for getting a lot of that lined up, and Sergeant Cassidy and what they did. But got a lot of individuals made some great comments about what it was. We appreciate the Sheriff's Department being involved in that.
Thank you.
And one other thing I wanted to ask about, I noticed that the County Technical Assistance Service is having a courthouse security training. Are y'all going to be involved in that?
On this 1,004 you had in there today, approximately how many are pre-trial?
I gotta pull up mine.
Handy dandy.
I had it pulled up this. Okay. Give me a second. Pretrial males 427, pretrial females 105. I have a total of 812 male inmates and a total of 192 female inmates.
So over 50% are pre-trial.
I can even break it down. Total state inmates, 230. Misdemeanors, male convicted misdemeanors, 155. Female state inmates, 44. Female misdemeanors, 43. So,
A lot of pre-trial, takes up a lot of room.
well, and another thing to think about too, we budgeted for our food budget at 958. So we're at 1,004. So
Thank you much.
thank you.
Juvenile detention, missed it. It didn't take long.
All right.
Go to the report first.
Okay, yes, the report. This is going to wrap up our fiscal year. We made just over $480,000 for the year. If there's any other questions about that report, I'll be happy to answer them. The outstanding at the bottom is actually just bills that haven't come from last billing cycle.
How do the marshals pay? Do they pay quarterly or do they just?
No, they pay monthly, like.
Okay.
Is there a percentage on this report of how many juveniles are from Rutherford County and how many is from outside of the county?
We booked in for the month of June 65 for the month of June, and then where it says out of county book, we booked in 29.
Okay. So that's roughly a third, something like that. Okay, thank you.
The next one should be our STD report. What's interesting this month is that 12% of our population tested positive for either chlamydia or gonorrhea. We're having a issue with, we're getting them treated while they're there, they leave, upon their return, they're positive again. So some of the same ones we're treating over and over. On the programming report, there's really nothing there that's any different. We're still doing all the same programs that we normally do. Success.
Yep. The rap sheet, what's the big ones on there?
Probably what's interesting this month is that normally the sheriff's department has a lion's share of detainees brought in. This past month it was Laverne Police Department, overwhelmingly so. So I don't know what happened in Laverne, but apparently they had a lot of burglary autos.
Any questions on the report? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any further questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
The last thing I have tonight is we are currently contracting with the Tennessee State Department of Children's Services for detention beds. This is an amendment to that contract. It is the same amount per child per day. It's the same total amount. They simply changed some of the contractual wording in one of the sections of that contract. As far as we're concerned, it makes really no difference on how we deal with them on a regular basis. I think they just added some, as far as revisions, as far as how long they would hold a invoice open, which isn't really an issue for us. So, but because it requires a signature, I needed to bring it through and get the mayor's signature on it.
Has the mayor looked at it?
He has a copy of it, so I'm sure that he has.
Okay.
We have a motion on the request.
So move.
The motion, we have a second.
Second.
Second. How many Department of Children's Services do we get roughly on average a month?
For the month of June, we have an average of 5. Now, it ranges, this past year, it ranged anywhere from 1 to 11, so.
And if I read this right, we get paid $132.38 per child that Human Services sends us, right?
Yes, per day.
And for state inmates that are sent to us, we get $37.50. Isn't that it?
I don't know what it is at the jail. I know that the juveniles require more individual care, so to speak, so they do pay more for the kids.
Okay.
Do we have what I'm really asking, I guess, is do we have a cost on what it costs us to house these kids?
The last time that we did one was some time ago. It's been probably more than 5 years. I can bring that to you next month. I don't have it with me. At 132, we make some, but our regular rate is $175 per child per day. So we do a whole lot better when we hold other county kids than when we hold state kids. But an empty bed that can be filled, anything is helpful. So.
Further questions? All in favor signify by saying aye to approve. Yeah, we just change the wording and a request to have the mayor sign it.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carried.
We'll just need to go to budget and finance and.
It's
Put it
not
on the
changed.
sheet for Mark to decide if he wants
Okay.
it or
Oh,
not.
okay.
I don't
That's
think it
good.
will, but
All right. because there's no money change or
No.
anything in it.
Yeah. But they may, so I'll let that up to him.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, have a good week. Mr. Solandi,
Yeah,
Parks and
that-
Work Center.
Report starts with the last board meeting, July 6th, and it covered expenditures, and there was nothing unusual to report there to the board. It approved the expenditures, then we went on to other business. We had a pre-order, the Prison Rate Elimination Act. All facilities are mandated to have an audit of some kind based on this law. And overall, it was pretty good. We had a lot of things in place that auditor like. There's some little things that she saw pertaining to surveillance and probably adding a couple of staff, but I mean, overall, she liked, what she saw. And we are still waiting on her final report. And then when we'll send back an answer to some of those concerns, and then it goes to the DOJ. So we're still in that process. Matt Burgess asked about the recidivist rate, dealing with the work release inmates, and we're working on that report for him. And back then, we took some inmates to church. And then we had a prayer breakfast, and then we just took some inmates to church this past Sunday to Franklin Road. So that's going along fine. Then we had a state litter pickup. We were near the end of the fiscal year, including with that contract. So we collected $648.21 for July. Then the monthly worker report, which consists of inmate labor going out to the different crews, going out to different municipalities and other agencies, and even working on our compound. So we figured that based on that, it was about $131,776 saved using that. Then we have work release program. June we had 16 in the program. And you can see one hired full-time Presco Tech. And we had another one complete the program. So the program is going great. Like we expressed to the board and to Mayor Burgess, is the growth will also depend on additional manpower at some point. But other than that, I mean, the program is doing what it's designed for, and even more actually. So we've had other counties. Dyer County came to look at it a couple of weeks ago because they want to start one too. So just look at our model. So it's, like I said, it's a great program. And the yearly activity report shows the average count was 182, and you see the felons and misdemeanors. Work crews about 67 on average for June. The GED program, they did test as far as I think they had a test early this month, which is a high-SAT test, and that went great. Just waiting for the results. And that, it's going over getting steady intakes, and we're also getting walk-ins now. The DUIs that are just doing 48 hours or a little bit more, they're coming in, and also violation of probations on the first violation. So that's something we worked out. The judges wanted to kind of give the sheriff's department some relief with some of that, so we've been doing it for about 3 weeks now. That's my report.
Questions?
Move to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion second. Any questions? Not all in favor of approving the report signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Ready to go forward. First one's a year. First couple. Pause, Mr. Gregory.
Commissioner Schaefer, since you asked for additional information, I would love it if
Okay.
you're acceptable for them to go first. Might take a little bit longer than normal.
Okay, that's fine.
We like him.
So, well, we'll save the dead stock removal service agreement for the end too then. Okay, so Mr. White.
Always want to go after dead stock.
It's appropriate, isn't it?
All right, first page, really nothing to report other than we're 300 tons above where we were last year, and it's just going to keep going up. Everything else is normal wear and tear on the ambulances. Collections look pretty good this for last month, so everything is within normal on that page.
14-15 was the highest collection you've had.
Uh-huh. And we're close to that now. So.
This can then be used to remove decay into its...
Okay.
Never had commercials.
In services, these are in-service trainings and some of the special events that we stood by at, and some of the special operations unit responses. Nothing really out of the ordinary there. And the next page is our response time report broken out into the zones that we cover. Again, we're hovering at about 8.1. We'd love to see that at 6, but 8.1, anywhere between 6 and 7 is where we'd like to have that.
Okay. Well, what can you do to get down there in this day and age?
Less runs, more ambulances. More runs, more ambulances.
How about completing building
Infrastructure.
bridges?
Yeah, that'd be nice to do.
Feels like putting something out at Christiana Negable would help too, wouldn't it?
We're loaded up here in the city actually. You know, we have our busiest ambulance zones in Smyrna, Salem, MTSU, and of course Burton Street. Burton's overworked also. So those are our busiest stations.
When do you start work on the new station?
They're working over the plans right now. I'm not sure when the work date is. The next one is a breakdown by Commissioner District. Commissioner Serrano, I believe you take the cake with that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Break down some of the ambulance calls and triage and things like that. We had a computer glitch actually, and the next page is just a memo that explains that glitch. And one of our units made a run out of county that counted both in their zone and in county, so there's one run difference in the actual number of calls that they made. So that's all that memo does, is explain that. And this is from year, of course it's not, it's different. Okay, and then the last page is just our breakdown of ambulance zones. This is something you guys wanted to see, and I love this chart. It kind of gives you an idea about how many times units go out of zone to cover some of those busier zones that we have. MTSU is just really a huge zone, and it's our busiest.
Okay. If MTSU is called out, say it and/or Burton, what do you do with Manchester?
Manchester comes in actually. They come into the Publix right there.
Public zone.
On Manchester
Highway?
Yeah.
Okay.
They come into the Publix when those two zones are out, so we can cover them both with the Salem zone, which is a busy zone also. The Unit 39, our transport unit, helps us out there a little bit, but but we bring them in to do a standby, and that's what that first page was, how many standbys that we're doing. That's the end of the report.
Any questions for Mr. White? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve his report.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor? Any further questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you,
much,
Commissioners.
sir.
The first page is just year-to-date from January 1st till last Friday of our total runs, which is so far this year. Just my department alone had 764 runs. And then for the date ranging from the last public safety meeting until last Friday is 130 calls. And then the next report is the MVA report. Had 61 MVAs. Average response time was 10 minutes. And the yellow highlights the different times that Rescue 1 actually had to cover calls out of its zone because that rescue was down. So that, I think that in essence kind of run up our average response time countywide on that. And the next sheet is just the total hours of training hours, water usage, and total call volume countywide, which is 1,493 calls countywide, and they're broken down by each different department, what their call volumes consist of. And then the last page is we only had one structure that was actually damaged by fire that will be turning to the codes department. And as of to date, we are still in the running for our AFG grant. We put in a grant for all the volunteer departments to receive updates on their SCBA, their air packs, to bring them 45-minute bottles. We haven't been turned down for that, so we're still in running for that. And I hope that will, because a lot of the volunteers departments, their air packs have reached their lifespan, so they're going to have to replace them by buying them. And like I think one air pack is like about $5,500. So we put in for enough to replace what they've got, and they've been awarding those grants for quite some time, and we haven't got a letter. So I feel confident we'll get that. And the Safer grant, they started issuing those out, and we haven't received notification on that. So we're still in the running for that. So it looks pretty good for us on that part.
Haven't received any no's either, is what
No,
you're saying.
no news is good news right now, but you know, hopefully we'll hear from that pretty soon.
Got a question on, it's on your incident date range. It's the number is 631. It says authorized controlled burning. And you have 6 out there. Does that mean that you were called out on 6 controlled burnings?
Yeah, what that is people will drive by and they'll see fire or see smoke, and they'll call it in, or they'll be going on the highway really fast and they'll see flames, they thought something on fire, and they'll call it in, and we get there on the scene. It's just somebody who's got a controlled burn, and they're out there with it, and it's under control. Okay. But a lot of people are just scared of fire and they're scared of smoke. And of course, as the county continues to grow, you got more population, more houses. So if somebody is doing a controlled burn, we have quite a few complaints about people burning in the smoke, getting in their house, or just being irritating. Mm-hmm. But as long as they're burning vegetation on their property, they're within the law. So we just, make sure they're not burning anything illegal, any plastics or rubbers or hydrocarbons, and then we just tell them be careful, and if they need us, call us.
Yeah, and I guess it is good then that people do call, because sometime it's gonna be the one
Yeah.
that nobody's there, and it is. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Chief Farley?
Chief, I know at our last commission meeting, we made the transfer from Rockville and Walter Hill into the county. Is everything going smooth there?
Yeah, January 1st, we took in Walter Hill, and I've met with them several times, and we're getting things ironed out. We've taken on all their expenses and stuff, and seems to be been an easy transition right now. Of course, there was a few little glitches, people not understanding what was expected and everything, but I think everybody's kind of a lot more comfortable with what's happened and what's transpired.
Just as I mentioned, gentlemen, to the sheriff, the county fire department also had a couple of pieces of equipment out there at that event July 4th as well. We basically had a public safety event out there, and it was very well appreciated because the rain had taken care of all the baseball games and things we had going on, and that became the highlight of the day out there. In fact, they had a fire call, and they got to see the engines take off from out there to go to a fire call and come back, and it was really appreciated. Appreciate you guys there. So I tell you, if y'all want to get people knowing what our county's involved in with what these guys do, if you've got an event like that, you need to be talking to them.
Any further questions?
Move to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Okay.
How you doing, sir? Tonight I have my report, and I do have a budget amendment. Report first.
Yes.
If you look on page 2, where most of the first page is meetings and training that we've attended. On page 2, we're still working on 2014 Homeland Security Grant, and that's part of the amendment. We're having to roll some money from 14 to 15, just to let you know that. We're still doing some finishing up on the fixed site communications. The 3 sites primarily we're working on now is Eagleville, Hudson, and Bradyville. Motorola's in town. As a matter of fact, Mr. Gurley and myself met with them today. They're finishing up some things. If the weather's good, and that's always an iffy thing, we hope to have most everything tied down here in the next few days.
You're still letting him do stuff?
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, I keep wanting y'all to do something to make him stay. Can y'all do a resolution that won't let him retire?
He's got 4 more days to.
Yeah.
There you go. Put it.
And actually, just like I explained to y'all before, after since he has some vacation, he has to go away and use that up first. But we will see him around for a couple of months, helping out whoever I can hire for the new one. And that's one of my notes on here. We have advertised for the position. The closing date is this Thursday. We have begun initial planning for an exercise over at the Correctional Work Center. It'll be done in 2 phases. On the 7th of October, we'll do a tabletop exercise with their leadership, as well as other public safety and other interested parties. And then on the 21st, we're going to do a live drill in a small portion of the Correctional Work Center. We're not going to empty the whole thing out. So. We're also doing some search and rescue volunteer training on Saturday, the 15th of August. We're hosting a hazmat operations course. It's a week-long course. Of all the courses we teach, it's probably the second most labor and logistics intensive. The other one is a 2 weeks course, which is a hazmat tech course, which requires a lot of equipment, a lot of instructors. But we're doing that the 31st of August through the 4th of September. And we have our LEPC meeting on the 10th of September, and we're lining up a guest speaker for that. Let you know more next meeting. We'll give you everything now. So.
Are those meetings that you have, like the hazmat, is it held out here in your office building, or do you get?
Oh, I do it there. I got some room for 50 people in some really nice, comfortable chairs. It's the EOC, and we reconfigure it. It's usually in what I call the classroom setup most of the time, and when we have an emergency, we reconfigure it. So it's as good as anything else. And yeah, it's 85-year-old building, but we think we want to stay there for a long time, which is why I put in for that clean energy grant. And I'll talk about that
here in a few minutes. Under response, we've had 7 responses, 4 spills, 2 gas-related, as in natural gas and propane gas, and 1 vehicle accident we were called out to. Nothing real big on those right there. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes my report.
Questions for Mr. Cass? If not, I'll entertain a motion on the report.
So moved.
A motion, second.
Second.
Curiosity question. I hear that there's more and more trucks are going to natural gas to propel them. How's that affect you if they have wrecks or something like that?
Well, it would, depending on how much they're carrying, which they probably will hold enough to cause us to be involved, as well as sort. Sort's actually your hands-on folks when it comes to that type of thing. But yes, it is. Now, I don't have any numbers on how quickly that's increasing or how many of those trucks are coming through us. To date, of course, I'm only talking about 2 years of my experience. I've not seen one on an accident, but that doesn't mean they're not out there.
Yeah. Well, I've just been told by people that more and more are going that way as opposed to gasoline and stuff. Like okay. All in favor of approving the report signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Next is what? Clean Energy Grant next?
Yeah, there's 2 things on them. One, I just talked about the Homeland Security money from 2014 that was not spent. That's $22,812 needs to be rolled over to the 15 budget. That's very simple. The other thing is we were awarded the Tennessee Clean Energy Grant money in an amount of $23,010. That's a 50% match. And what we're going to do with that, and that's why my report's so thick. I guess I scared you over how thick it was. If you want to do a little light reading on how they figured this, it's in the back. But basically, there's 2 things that they were awarded it on. One was the roof. We're going to put 1.5 inches worth of foam on the top, and that's going to take up I think about $10,000–12,000 of the money. The rest of the money is going to be in replacing all the bulb lights in there with LEDs, and the payoff on the LEDs is about 2.5 years. I think the roof, because there's lesser energy savings, it's going to take, I think, 5 or 6 years payoff on that. But the reason why I went after this is because there were things in the building, because it's 85 years old, that needed to be done, and this is one way to help pay for some of it.
We talked earlier, a few months back, about the importance of that building, to some of us anyway. When this is complete, what kind of shape or condition would you say that building would be in? It's
in good condition for the way for the age it is. It suits our purposes greatly. My biggest concern going forward is not the building itself, but the motor pool out back and the fence. The trees and weeds have grown on it so much till they compromise the fence. So we got to clear it back and do something about repairing the fence area in the back.
But the building itself?
The building itself is
good for another 85 years?
Yeah, we got, every once in a while you get a few leaks or something like that. Yeah. Well, since I won't be in it for 85 years, then yeah, it should be great. I mean,
I'm only 65. I've got a few leaks.
But no, it's actually and it's a good solid one. We do this stuff with the roof and the lights. Right now, maintenance is repairing the air conditioning. By the way, we did put in for this grant to get them to upgrade the air conditioning and the heating, but the payoff in energy savings would have taken 85 years, and that disqualified that portion.
Right. So on this with the Clean Energy Grant also needs signatures and all that, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion to be sure and include that for both these amendments, any needed signatures in it, please.
Just for the record, the capital project is $46,000, and you're asking for 23 in matching funds. Where will that come from?
That should come out of maintenance because they're responsible for the maintenance of the building.
Okay.
We actually put in for the grant, since they're so busy, and we saw the need, and we could get it done within the window, and we knew what the issues were. That's why we put in for the grant.
So if the grant's approved, then we'll figure out where the other $23,000 come from.
And we've been in contact with maintenance, and it shouldn't be a big issue at all.
Well, grant's been approved, right? That's why it's an amendment.
No, he knew about this, and I don't
Yeah.
want to speak for him, but I was under the impression that his budget was planned to account for some of this
So
stuff.
he does have, I remember, $600,000 in budget improvements for Mr. Mankin and all the county buildings. So I'm sure it's in there somewhere on this. And this gets this one back in complete shape. Okay. So we'll entertain a motion unless there's further question. We'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
We got a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Any further questions? Becky?
And this is to approve the budget amendment and accept the grant.
Right. And all signatures, everything.
Commissioner Gurley?
I'll abstain.
Oh, come on, Joe. You only got a week left. Just a week.
And yeah, instead, we
Commissioner Nickmer?
talked about this
Yes.
several times.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay.
I really don't think it's gonna get done quick enough to affect the temperature in my office, but
All right. So let's just very quickly look at OSHA since they aren't here. And if you have any questions about that, we can put them in the minutes so they'll be answered by the next time.
Mr. Chairman, I reviewed this before the meeting. I don't see anything out of the ordinary, and as other folks are looking at it, I move that we approve that report.
I'll second that.
We get a second. So, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, great. All right. Now, Mr. Gregory, thank you. We'll just go over your report first, and then we'll get...
For the month of June, we had 787 animals enter into the shelter. We had 225 animals that were adopted, 430 animals that were euthanized, 135 animals reclaimed, 8 animals that died while in our care, and 27 that had other outcomes. It gave us a total animals out of 825. Our adoption and reclaim percentage was 43.6%, and our euthanasia rate was 52.1%. When you factor in animals that were transferred to other agencies or released back into the wild, we had a live release rate of 45.7%, and 77 of the animals that were reclaimed were from our surgery programs. On June the 30th, we had 95 animals that remained in our care. We had 2,141 people visit the shelter looking for a new or lost pet, and 2,519 log calls and voicemails. 1,618 calls were received, 1,650 calls were completed, and we traveled 10,818 miles. With June being the end of the fiscal year, we took in 6,876 animals. Our adoption and reclaim percent was 40.6%, and our euthanasia rate was 51.2%. Live release was 45.7%. We had over 23,000 people visit the shelter during the year, and over 25,000 calls and voicemails. Our call volume was calls received 18,707, and we had 18,721 calls that were completed, and we traveled 129,088 miles for the fiscal year. On our bite report, of course this goes calendar year, not fiscal year. We had 41 animals that were involved in bite cases. 3 of those were tested. None of those were tested as positive. We had 12 other exposures. 5 of those were tested, and none of those tested positive as well. It's nice to see a month where we don't have a positive. Unfortunately, it doesn't hold for July. Just for your information, I also included another report. I give this to you every July. I just call this a yearly trend. I like to look to see. We can go back in our Canadian computer system to 2007, 2008. So I like to pull these stats and kind of see where we are by year. You can see for the fiscal year that just ended, our intake was 6,876 animals, which is down from 7,740 the prior year. So our intakes are going down. If you start looking at our, if you look under outcomes, you'll see where it's, that's broken down by species, and I have dogs. If you'll just scan over, look at the adoption reclaim percentage, and look at the euthanasia rates for our dogs and how those have changed over the last, 8 fiscal years. Pretty significant there. If you look at our cats and do the same, you'll see that we were off a couple of percent on our adoption reclaim percentage, but we also ended our cat stamp grant that year in 2014-15, so that affected those numbers a little bit, but you can still see it's a far cry from in 2011 and 12 we had 10%, and we're running 29% now.
Good. Cool.
So I always, I guess, preach to you all, the biggest thing that affects our euthanasia rate is our intake rate. So you can see how that, having that intake go down by that, 800-900 animals makes a significant impact on our ending rate.
You've probably updated us on this before, but you mentioned people looking for lost animals. How successful is that?
Well, you can see.
Round it out.
Well, it's just say for the month of June, we had 135 animals that were reclaimed. 77 of those were surgery programs. So you're talking, 58-ish or so animals that were reclaimed. Typically, the number one thing that's going to help an animal be reclaimed are having their license tag on, so that we can go back and find that owner, or microchip. We're seeing microchips gain more in popularity, but still nowhere near the numbers we should see. So getting animals back home is fairly difficult. And if you take, those 77 animals for the month of June, the majority of those surgery animals that were reclaimed were cats. Very few dogs in there. So if we only reclaimed 76 cats the entire month, had 77 through surgery. On a good month, 3 or 4 cats to their owners. And cats are our highest intake and our highest euthanasias.
So in a nutshell, what he's told us is that if people would get their animals spayed or neutered and keep them under their control.
Well, and that's why we're kind of taking the multifaceted approach this year by doing the PR stuff. We did interviews on those today. Also the 1,000 spay surgeries for the public. For the first year on that surgery program, we're only looking at females so that we can have the largest impact. And you tie all those things together in one ball of wax, that's going to be what gets us closer to being there. We're not going to flip a switch next year and I'm going to, next year come in and say, hey, we're shutting down. It's always going to be a problem, but it gets us more in the right direction. So we're moving there.
Has your department stopped picking up skunks, caged skunks?
This was a question that Commissioner Schaefer asked you.
Why don't we just get that in a minute, because we'll be talking about it all. Okay. All right. So let's just take care of the report, and if there's no further actual questions on the report, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the report.
Move to approve.
Motion in a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now, I've asked Mr. Gregory if he would brief us on the procedures, and it's not just skunks, but it's wild animals in Rutherford County, what we're doing with them, and what some of the other counties are doing with them.
Right.
Okay.
Back when we did the rules and regulation update in the fall, we were picking up wildlife out of individuals' traps, and we were having wildlife removal companies that were doing a couple of different things. One, they would charge the citizen to come set the trap on their property, and then if they caught an animal, they were calling us to remove it out of their trap when they were being paid by the citizen for those services. Or the second thing they were doing is they would set the trap, capture something, then they would be bringing it to our receiving door with a skunk in hand, expecting us to take and take care of that animal. While we were kind of in the middle of all of this process, we had an investigator come to us from Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. His name is Mr. Bowles, B-O-L-E-S, and he said, the way y'all have been doing things isn't how you're supposed to be doing things, so I'm going around to animal control agencies to make them aware that all of your folks that are handling and transporting wildlife have to have what's called an animal damage operator license. So all of our folks went and got that. It is free. But if we were caught transporting an animal in one of our trucks without that license by the game warden, we could be fined. So we went through all that process and kind of told him where we were on this wildlife and whatnot. So then when we took the rules and regulations and we went with the mayor, I think Deputy Mayor was there at that time as well, we started looking at our rules and regulations, and it talked about that we have the ability to set traps for nuisance domestic animals. And then also talks about that we're authorized to receive animals from other entities and citizens. But the thing that we were hung up on was nuisance domestic animals. The rules had always stated that, but we were setting traps for wildlife and bringing in large numbers of wildlife, which was eating up tons of manpower, when we necessarily weren't supposed to be doing that to start with. So at that point, the mayor indicated that we needed to stop taking in wildlife that are just being that are nuisance wildlife and go back to handling wildlife that are bite and rabies suspect animals. So if we have someone that calls in with a wildlife issue that the animal's either sick, injured, behaviorally, there's issues there that would lead one to believe that there could be an issue as far as it being rabid, we respond to those calls. However, if someone contacts us and says, hey, I just have a skunk in my yard and it's exhibiting normal behavior, they're seeing it out at night, this, that, and the other, then those are referred to wildlife removal companies. Where we've been having some issues recently is with folks. A lot of folks have their own traps within our county. So they will go out and set their trap and then contact us when they trap something. So to be fair to everyone, what we did was kind of get the first one free. They would call in, hey, I've caught a skunk. We will come out and pick it up at this point. Officers in the field and the person on the phone is explaining to them, hey, we're going to come and get this one. We're going to go ahead and leave you some information with our rules. We're going to leave you information as far as with what companies will handle that in the future. But, we'll take this one, but in the future, you're going to have to contact those. A lot of folks are upset over that, obviously, because it does cost money for them to come out and do that. But the issue is we took in 1,400 wildlife the prior fiscal year. That'd be 2013-14. So we took in 1,400 wildlife.
What do you do with the wildlife that you bring in?
Well, prior to meeting with Mr. Bowles with the TWRA, we had been told that all skunks, bats, raccoon, and fox had to be euthanized. So that's what we were doing. Anything else that was not injured or sick, we were releasing back out. When he came in, he indicated that the only things that we were required to euthanize are skunks and bats. So we started immediately releasing our raccoons and our fox, which weren't a huge number. Skunks are the number one thing we were taking in.
Do you have to take those out into the county somewhere, or?
We usually take them to near a water source, as close as we can get to be as far away from a place that we can get. Of course, that's pretty hard now in the county with the growth that we've experienced. So we release those at water sources. The issue that we're seeing that's kind of continues to come back to a head is the folks that have these private traps not wanting to pay to have them removed by the wildlife removal company. I've dealt with a couple of folks. I've got one person in your district that those are the notes there.
She's not my district.
Okay.
She's in my city.
I apologize. Who I have attempted to contact at least 5 or 6 times since last Wednesday, I believe, and have left multiple messages, been able to get in contact with. And then I've spoken with another lady out off of Thompson, I believe it is, regarding she's capturing a lot of squirrels. The biggest things that folks can do, and when I tried to explain to the woman who was capturing the squirrels, she could capture a squirrel every day, but being where she lives and the resources are remain, so it's not going to be effective. For us to continue to go out and pick up 1,400 wildlife is not an effective means of population control. We could euthanize 50 skunks a day, but it's not going to do a thing for population control for skunks within this county.
I
Was letting
received.
them go gonna do anything for it?
I can't let a skunk go. Every skunk that's picked up, because bats and skunks are the two highest carriers of rabies, I automatically have to put them down. So then on the flip side of that, you know, the general public's looking at that euthanasia rate. So, but I'm bringing in animals that I have zero option to do anything with other than euthanize because of the state law.
There's also apparently quite a bit of, I received some calls, there's probably some other commissioners did, quite a bit of misinformation which we might be able to get the media to help us in educating the public. This particular citizen seems to think that all skunks are born with rabies, which is simply not true. And therefore they're doing a great service to mankind by trapping as many skunks as possible. So there's some misinformation, and if you go to the internet, you'll find some of that misinformation out there. And so maybe we need to try to do some education as far as the citizenry goes to offset some of that misinformation that's out there around. Obviously, if a skunk is exhibiting behavior that is indicative of rabies, then you all will take care of it. But just to try to catch skunks because they might get rabies or there's an assumption that they were born with rabies is really not necessarily a good thing.
Right. I spoke with Mr. Bowles again this morning, and I'll be seeing him at a conference in a couple of weeks where he's going to have a presentation there. He indicated that one of the reasons that skunks and bats have to be euthanized is the fact that a skunk could carry rabies without showing the symptoms. Typically, he said when you think of the symptoms of rabies, you think of the kind of foaming at the mouth, kind of acting strange and whatnot. He indicated that with skunks, typically with them, they're just going to be kind of sleepy, and people see that and think, well, it's different. I don't disagree with what you're saying regarding education. It may be something to where when I see him in a couple of weeks, I speak to him to see if he would be interested in assisting us with that. Just from the fact that it seems like maybe the prophet doesn't have any honor in his own land, and maybe coming from someone with the state that deals with that type thing every day, that might do a little better. We did do some research. I had my assistant do that last week, and I followed up with a couple of places today. Montgomery County Animal Control, for bite and rabies suspect wildlife, they'll go out and investigate. They only set traps for dogs and cats. If wildlife's caught in their trap, they release it, which they obviously don't know the laws yet at this point. They don't even loan traps out like we do. If it's a citizen's trap, they're responsible for relocating the animal. If they capture wildlife, if it's not sick, of course you release it back out. If it's sick, they evaluate and make the decision for humane euthanasia if necessary. If it's caught in a citizen's trap, they tell them they just need to release it. So you've got citizens that are going out releasing animals out of their own traps, but they don't have knowledge of how to deal with wildlife. Sumner County, the only time they will go out and respond to a wildlife call is if the animal is in the living space of their residence. They do not crawl in crawl spaces. They do not go in attics. Say they really haven't had an issue with skunks or raccoons going into the traps that they set. If an individual called with wildlife in their personal trap, they would not respond. Williamson County, no longer pick up wildlife. They stopped picking up skunks in November of 2014, refer everybody to a wildlife trapper. They loan out traps with a $50 deposit. If citizens catch wildlife in either their trap or in the trap that they've loaned from the county, they're told to take the wildlife out to the outskirts and to let it go, which if they got caught, they're going to be in trouble as well. They can't take it off their property. Wilson County refers everything to TWRA. Bedford County does not handle wildlife. They refer everyone to wildlife removal. Coffee County Animal Control didn't receive a response back. Metro Animal Control, we left a message, haven't received a response back. And Tullahoma City, contacted them. They loan traps out to folks. They said they're so busy. They were so busy setting traps for folks that they went just to an all loan system. Once an animal's trapped, they will dispose of the animal. They rehome wildlife at what they call a leaf pit, unless if it's sick. If it's sick, they go ahead and take care of it. So most animal controls aren't handling wildlife unless if it's going to be that bite or rabies suspect animal. And it was something that we were doing that we really weren't supposed to be doing according to the rules and regulations to start with. So that's kind of where we are. I know you had asked me to do some research on how to keep them out of folks' yards and those type things. And the biggest thing that I can find in the research that I've done is to get rid of the resources that are drawing them there. I looked up their breeding season, and I think we discussed that their breeding season was in February. I thought they bred twice a year. February's basically it. Their gestation period's around 66 days, so that puts the babies being born typically in March and June. It takes a couple of months before you start seeing the babies after their birth, and then from the reading that I did, typically the offspring stays with the mother for quite some time, almost until the next year. Biggest thing again is removing resources. That'd be garbage. You're feeding animals outside, things that would attract them. Cover openings underneath your houses so they don't get up in there and get in your ductwork. Also covering up holes around your AC units outside to prevent them from getting up in there and nesting. And then just discouraging making places where they would normally build dens, discouraging those, such as old lumber piles or stuff that's around underneath buildings if you're seeing digging and things like that. Of course, kind of the cure-all thing that you see for everything is just go throw out some mothballs. I read that as well. They did say that it was maybe not the most effective because you'd have to replace those all the time. But it seems like mothballs is always the catch-all in deterring any type of thing. So, but that's the research that we've done. I did speak to the mayor again. It wasn't last week, it was the week before. We both met with him, and just to make sure that we were all still on the same page. And I don't remember his exact words, but it's basically stay the course.
There's something, if you ever go to the convenience centers, I've got down to Sand Hill often, and I see people coming in with pickup trucks and there's bags of trash in them. So they collected it for a while until they make the one trip instead of going in a little more frequent, or getting with one of the places that charge you $20 a month or so to pick it up.
When I had Mr. Bowles with the TWRA on the phone this morning, I asked him some other questions as well. It's not illegal for a homeowner to use their trap to trap the animals. However, they have to relocate them on their property.
Is that the only alternative? If your property's a third of an acre, what do you do?
I'm just telling you what he indicated. If you cannot the person could not transport them off of their property without the proper permitting.
What if you left them in the track for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks?
No food or water.
I don't even want to go there. And I asked him, I said, is capture and kill for the skunks, or capture and relocate for the other types of wildlife effective, is an effective means of population control? And he said, no, not at all.
Plus, you heard Mr. Gregory say 1,400 that we picked up last fiscal year.
Our numbers, when we started this, the rules I think were passed in November, I think the November commission meeting. Of course, we gave folks the one free, and we're still giving folks. I mean, we've had folks call within the last month, and they finally picked up their one, and we're still going out. So we did make a huge difference in our numbers. I think it was 1,000. We picked up 1,000 this year. We went from 1,460 down to 1,034, so we picked up a little over 400 less. So that number should continue to go down. But the other thing is this: even by taking out those calls, our call volume was still higher than it was the prior fiscal year. So, we're still running. It's not like we're going, hey, we're getting rid of these 400 wildlife, and we're just kind of resting on our laurels. That's not the case by any means. The call volumes continue to go up as the population goes up.
The point I was making, though, is to do this additional thing will cost us more people and more vehicles to be able to cover it all.
I can't keep the positions I have filled right now with qualified folks.
Did I hear you say that you had traps that you loaned out?
We have, yes, we do. We have a trap loan agreement form that a citizen fills out, and then we bring the trap out and set. If they come in, though, those trap loan agreements now are only for dogs and cats. If they come in specifically saying it's wildlife, then we're not able to assist with that.
You're talking about filling your positions with qualified people. Where are they going? What are they doing?
Well, I had one who is working out there. Notice now they're going to Metro for more money.
Okay.
I've had Sonny and I reviewed the ones we had for last year. I had one who he had an ag degree, he went to another ag position, more money. I had another person that went to a completely different field. It was for, I believe it was for more money as well.
So they're improving themselves. It's not that they dislike the work?
No, those three that I just named, they disliked Rutherford County's work. How's that? I have nothing to hide whatsoever. I like our department to be run in order, and I like our reports to be complete. I like our reports to be accurate because if our reports are lacking, that opens us up for a lot of things across the street here. The week that I got here, you all settled a lawsuit for $110,000 for a case that was missing one sentence. We've been sued one time since I've been here, and it wasn't a matter related to one of our reports, and I'm proud of that. So we do things a little differently than others. I may be a little bit OCD, possibly, but I like things to be done decently in order, and that doesn't always sit well.
Further questions for Mr. Gregory? Thank you very much. Hopefully this can get some of the word out that if any of you are getting calls, remember July 27th public safety meeting at the end.
And I don't mind speaking to your constituents whatsoever. If there's an issue, please have them contact me, and I'll give them a call back.
Thank you for your help. Thank you. Okay. We've got one more. You want to handle it, or it's just is it the same as last year?
It's the same as last year.
Same amount of money?
Same amount of money's been budgeted. It's recurring.
Okay. I'd really like to have him read it to me.
These guys have been doing that service for us as long as I can remember, and I've never heard a complaint. As a matter of fact, all I've ever heard are compliments on these guys. My brother lives down in Laverne and had a couple of horses. One of them got old and passed away, and they responded immediately and carried that animal off. So they serve a real valuable service. If anybody wants to look at the report, more power to them, but I move that we approve the agreement.
I'll second that.
And that's any signatures needed, I think. Yeah. Well, if he signed it. It's got to be by the other people when it's approved. Okay. So, any further questions on it? They have been, and they've been very reasonable on what they do. And they also, something like a deer, if you hit it out by your house or something like this, they will get that.
And they do it quick.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's 24 hours.
On the deer, that would be the contract that goes through us, which is Alt-10. This contract runs through the county.
The deer's Alt-10?
For domestic.
Okay. This would only be for your livestock.
Okay.
And if I recall, from years past, I think the livestock had to be over 100 pounds.
75.
Okay. But if it's deer or skunks, possum, those type things, that's involved in our contract that we have with Alt-10.
That is correct. Thank you. So, Ms. Shelton, you call the roll?
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Nipper?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes. Anybody have anything further? Was the last item, was it not? Okay. we are adjourned.